Hello everyone, Republic Jim here. I'm just out for a nice relaxing walk on my property. Every now and then I have to get out in nature a little bit and get away from civilization, even though I'm not far from my house as the crow flies. It's kind of a roundabout way to get there, and as you can see, there's not really any signs of any civilization visible. So when I get out here out of view of everything and when it's quiet, it gives me a much more peaceful feeling. But I kind of felt the urge to do this video today that I feel is really critical right now. People need to be talking about it and making plans. So even though it's kind of an unsettling topic, I wanted to do that while I'm on this relaxing walk. So I'm just gonna move back into one of my favorite little campsites and set up and then continue on with this discussion. All right, I'm back. Had to get a little water and make myself comfortable. So as you can tell from the title, I want to talk about the current situation with inflation and food shortages and other things that are coming, and the global energy crisis. And anybody that watches my videos much knows not normally a topic that I do or even a genre of videos. Typically I talk a little bit about general preparedness, but I try to stay away from political stuff or any hardcore prepping videos. There's all kinds of good prepper channels out there on YouTube and on other platforms that are not as restrictive as YouTube. And I watch several of those, and I will also put a link in the description of some of the channels that I enjoy and recommend that I think have good advice. But that being said, this is directed more towards people who aren't into watching prepping channels or doing any kind of prepping. Obviously there are a lot of people who are, and to that I say well done. It's proving to be very beneficial right now. But for those who haven't gotten into any kind of prepping or even just mild preparedness and prefer to avoid paying attention to the current events, I just have to ask, why not? I mean, all you have to do is look at what's going on right now and see that we're circling the drain, and things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. I don't try to focus normally on doom and gloom or anything, and like I said, I avoid politics for the most part, but honestly, our current situation is the direct result of total harebrained policy of the current regime. And you have to put blame where it belongs and just address what we have to do to deal with the situation. Now, the people that are supposedly in charge and are making policy decisions that affect us all, honestly, they're like a bunch of 5-year-olds on meth or something. I don't even know what in the world they're doing. Presumably, they have college degrees, a lot more education than me, and all sorts of experience in different agencies and managing these things. But we see over and over in the news that the top officials are surprised by different reports when they come out. The latest job report comes out, and the people in charge are surprised that there aren't as many jobs being filled as what they're expecting. The economic reports come out, and they're surprised that inflation is higher than and more prolonged than what they expected. You know, all of a sudden we're looking at a global energy crisis, and could be quite severe in our own country, and they're surprised by that. They're surprised by the huge numbers of people coming across our borders, and yet all these things are directly, you know, they're cause and effect. It's because of the policies that those so-called leaders have done. I can't even fathom what they thought was going to happen. You can go to any number of prepping channels, and they've been talking about these very things for the past year or more. They've been warning about just rampant inflation. They've been warning about shortages and energy crisis and all these other things. It's obvious to anybody that pays attention and knows anything about the economy, and so you would assume that the government agencies that are in charge and monitor that sort of thing would have some clue about what's happening, but evidently they don't now. You know, we have a government that is more concerned about pushing critical race theory and transgender rights and open borders, and they want to just do huge amounts of new spending, just insane numbers, and keep sending people money for staying home and not working, and they want to just let people stream across the border without being checked, or, you know, and I mean, all these things are causing the issues that we're dealing with now. And again, if you're paying attention to the current events and seeing these reports coming out in the news, you know it's not getting better anytime soon. It's only getting worse. I mean, we are circling the drain, and we're picking up speed quickly. So, you know, like this area, we haven't seen too much so far in the way of shortages at the store. There's some empty shelves, but you know, like when we had the first round of lockdowns for the pandemic, and I'm not even going to get started on that topic, but when we had the first round, you know, we had quite a few shortages locally, and the delivery trucks were only bringing a fraction of what the stores were requesting. And of course, you know, you couldn't get toilet paper anywhere, and milk and eggs and things like that were in short supply. And now we're slowly getting back to that stage, except that now, instead of just a sudden spike in demand and lack of supply to keep up, it's a systemic thing that has been building. We're getting further and further behind on deliveries. We've had problems with crops due to drought and flooding, and the whole labor shortage thing. It's just becoming harder and harder to get food to the market. And you know, I think as we see more people losing their jobs due to refusing to comply with, you know, tyrannical mandates and that sort of thing, we'll have even more of a labor shortage. We'll have less first responders out there. We'll have less truck drivers. We'll end up having higher crime, less stuff getting delivered. I think, you know, stores are going to be dealing with a lot more shoplifting because of the whole crime and lack of enforcement thing, at the same time that they're not able to get as much in there, and the prices are skyrocketing. So it's going to really snowball. Probably by winter we're going to be seeing a lot of bare shelves and just ridiculous prices for things that we normally just take for granted. So, you know, we could very quickly start resembling Venezuela or some third world country that, you know, where people are going without because they didn't have the foresight to stock up. And then, you know, there's the we could be facing hyperinflation just because we have a government that thinks it's a great idea to just keep printing money by the billions and trillions and just pumping it into the economy, and seem to have no grasp of the idea that that devalues our currency and reduces our buying power. So, you know, our whole economy could tank here pretty soon. Everybody will find it just more economically feasible to stay at home and collect money from the government instead of going and actually producing anything. And, you know, the money's going to be just worthless. We could get to a point where, you know, you need a wheelbarrow full of cash just to go and buy groceries. And then the other big thing, like I mentioned with winter coming up, is the energy crisis. And we have a resident that thinks that it's a great idea to shut down gas pipelines and fracking and anything else, and just trying to switch as rapidly as possible to green energy, which is more expensive and unreliable. And countries all over the world are doing the same thing, and suddenly, you know, gas prices are just climbing daily practically, and again, the admin is surprised at how much the prices are going up. Now they're asking OPEC, of all people, to put out more supply and reduce costs, as if they have any incentive to do that. So we could easily see gas rationing at some point, like back in the 70s, and of course just high prices regardless. And, you know, propane is going to be a lot more expensive and harder to get, natural gas, all that sort of thing. And if people are counting on that to heat their homes, it's going to get really difficult really quickly. And also, you know, for all the people that switched over to electrical heat because it's so efficient and they can use green energy and all of that, I fully expect that we'll be seeing rolling blackouts, you know, if not just outages from snow and such like Texas faced last year, but just areas where they can't provide enough electricity with their silly reliance on too much renewable energy. You know, if it's an overcast day and the wind is not blowing, it doesn't do much good to have a whole bunch of solar panels and wind turbines. You still have to rely on coal or natural gas to generate power. And if you've really limited the supply of that and there's a shortage, you can't produce enough electricity. Plus, we have people in the Northwest that are trying to get rid of all of our dams that produce the most reliable, renewable energy possible. You know, we have these existing dams that produce huge amounts of electricity, but they want to take them out and reduce the water flowing through there. And so then, you know, we end up with these shortages of electricity too, just as more and more people are switching to electric vehicles because they're so green. So we could easily see rolling blackouts on a regular basis in the middle of winter. And I hate to say it, but it's quite possible that there could be more people freezing to death this winter simply because they're counting on inexpensive electricity or fuel to heat their homes, and they didn't plan ahead. And I mean, all in all, with the different scenarios I've mentioned, it could get really ugly this winter, possibly some of it even sooner, but at least by the middle of winter, I think it's going to be nasty. And, you know, and that's not even taking into account civil unrest and the lack of law enforcement and that sort of thing. But like I said at the start, you know, if you're not already a prepper, you haven't really given it much thought, why not? I mean, I would never say it's too late, but it's getting darn close to being too late. And if you're not already stockpiling stuff and making plans, then I highly encourage you to get on it right away. You know, I'm not saying just like go out and impulse shop and hoard stuff like with the whole toilet paper stupidity, but whenever you go grocery shopping, if there's stuff on the shelves, you know, figure out what you normally use and buy a little bit extra, set some aside, and do that every time you go shopping. Just start gradually stockpiling it. Find a place to store it, get a system, get those groceries stockpiled. See about storing some gas if you have a place for it, and if you have cans and that sort of thing. And, you know, propane, whatever. I mean, figure out what your needs are, what you normally use, and then look at how you can start just as rapidly as possible getting some of that stuff put away and making plans for what to do if the worst case happens. And just, I know that it can be a financial hardship trying to buy extra stuff, but also keep in mind that, yeah, prices are high right now. Don't expect them to come down. I fully expect they're going to keep going up, probably faster than they are now. I think we're going to see some runaway inflation for a while. So if you know that you can get stuff, you know, you can afford to do it if you kind of scrimp a little bit now, do it while you still can before the price gets totally ridiculous and before those things aren't available. Just keep in mind, it doesn't do a lot of good to save money now if it's going to be worthless later. So, you know, I would never tell people not to save and plan for the future, but right now I think it's more important to get those things that you're going to need to survive in the coming months. And I mean, hopefully I'm wrong about how bad I think it's going to get, but it could be really crazy, and there could be a lot of people desperate trying to figure out how to get by with, you know, with all the rising costs and shortages and the energy crisis and all that sort of thing. So, you know, if I'm wrong, I'll be very happy about that. But, man, if I'm right, people get prepared, do your best, and to just in the short time left to do what you can to get ready. So hopefully that's useful information to some people. Like I said, there will be links below for some good prepper channels that have all kinds of content about what to plan for, what to stockpile, you know, how to do it and all that. They have a lot more information than I do, and I'm not even going to try to go down that rabbit hole. Just use those resources. Hope this has been informative, and, you know, hopefully I didn't tick off too many people, but sorry, that's just what I believe. And if you don't like it, feel free to move along. Don't bother prepping if you're offended by that, and you can pay the consequences for that later. But for those who do heed this and feel the way that I do, see that things are going that way, you know, I wish you the best in preparing, and that's about all I have on the topic for now. I'll get back to my regular channel content, but just felt that I needed to say this. So that's it for now. It's been Republic Jim. I'll talk to you later.